Good morning. I am Debbie Silberberg. I am one of the members coordinating the Rockland Arts Festival. I hope you're having a good day. We are here with Ashley Gerst, who is going to present for us the her work on animation. Welcome, Audrey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share with you a little bit about what I'm doing and then also provide some insights on just the process of animation. And if you're interested in being an animator or testing it out as a art medium, how you can get started in doing that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then we can get started. Okay. So before we get started, I just wanted to share a little bit about me. This is my website. But I'm an animator in the Hudson Valley. I live in Rockland County. And I am a freelance animator. My most recent client was Sesame Street. I did a short, 1 minute short animated film for their last season. I'm also the chair for the art department at William Patterson University, and I teach and that's in New Jersey, and I teach animation there. I'm a co-lead for Women in Animation's New York City chapter, along with two other women. And I also make my own films, and that's one of my biggest passions as an artist is to make my own work and put it in film festivals and promote myself as an artist. While it's really wonderful working for other clients, especially working for a client like Sesame Street, I had a great time on that project. And I really love my job as chair of the art department that I'm teaching in. But at the same time, I like making my own work too, and I feel that it just keeps me current as an artist. And one of my most recent projects is called Sundays, and it is a short film about my relationship with my dad, who passed away about 5 years ago. Most of my work is sort of fantasy based, and so this is really the first one that's truly just a memoir featuring and following like my life and my memories with my dad. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit of my current progress on it. I'm hoping to finish it by May or June of this year. I honestly thought I'd have it done by now, and I just go as fast as I can go. And that's one thing we'll talk about today with animation is it is a marathon, not a sprint. And it is something that is a bit time consuming to do and can sometimes take a long time. Some of your favorite animations, if you look up a little bit of the history of it, you might see that it took that studio, Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, whatever, even Hayao Miyazaki, if you're really interested in Studio Ghibli and some of those other like feature length films or even short films, they take years. And that's pretty common when you're making something pretty long. But I thought I'd share a little bit about the process of animation and provide some insights on how you can test it out for yourself if you're interested in the animation medium. So to get started, I just wanted to show a little bit about my film. And so I'm going to play, this is one clip that I'll play for you. There's no sound. And this clip takes place on a beach, it is a finished clip for my film, and it features my brother and I and my dad, and then it sort of transitions into another shot where we're playing cards. And the joke of this part of the film is that I'm really bad at playing cards, but my brother and my dad are really good at it. So we're playing spades here, and the hand that I have, it's a long explanation, but I have a strategy for playing the game here that my brother disrupts, and then I lose that round. And the whole time that I animated this, because it does take some time to animate this clip, and in the whole time that I animated it, it didn't occur to me that once I got to this part that the cards in the hand were wrong. And so I actually had to reanimate one of the cards. Otherwise, the joke and the strategy that I'm doing in when playing spades wouldn't have worked. So that's how bad I am at cards, is I even animated it wrong. But one of the things that I really wanted to focus on in this animation is I wanted to, let's see if I can get this to loop. I'll worry about that later. But I wanted it to focus on our relationship together and some of the things that we enjoy doing. But I also wanted some of the aspects of who my dad was to be a part of it. So it took a long time to figure out what that would be. But if anybody here is familiar with accounting, you might recognize that what you're seeing in the background is actually a lot of like accounting tables. And my dad was an accountant. And he owned and operated, along with my grandfather at one point and my uncle, Gerst tax service in Ohio, which is where I'm from, Cleveland. And so I'm trying to combine all of these different things, and sometimes that could be, it's a long road to do that. And I wanted to share some of those techniques with you and just how I got here as I've been trying to figure out how I want to add some of the things I really enjoy and remember about my family and my dad and my experiences with my family. But at the same time, I want to make sure that it is, recognizable for an audience too. So it takes a little bit of time to figure that out, because at the end of the day, an animation is for an audience. And it's something that you want to show to someone, and the majority of the people that are watching it should understand what's happening and should understand the emotions those characters have and should understand where they are and what's happening in that scene. And so a lot of that, when we think about animation, really does end up translating to some really key formats for planning something like that. And so I wanted to share a little bit of that with you. And you might recognize this clip because it is the one that was used in social media to promote this event. So I also wanted to share a little bit. I found these online. I did not make them, but they're some of my favorite examples of what the pipeline is for creating a full animation film, like from start to finish. This is for 2D animation, and just to differentiate that from 3D, 2D is hand drawn and or drawn on the computer, which is what I do. But traditionally hand drawn would have been the beginning of 2D animation. So like Snow White, Bambi, and so on, like the Disney animated films. And then now it's fully digital. So if you've watched like basically anything in the last 15 to 20 years, it would have been done completely digitally. TV shows like Bob's Burgers to some like 2D animated feature films, or even 3D films that use some 2D in them. A really great example of that is Mitchell's versus the Machines, which is on Netflix. And that's by Sony, utilize some of those techniques, mix 2D and 3D. But if you've seen any 2D animation at this point, it's all completely digital. But to start, you have to have an idea. And then, of course, a contract if you're working with a company or you're being hired, and then you get some money. But we'll kind of ignore that. You start with an idea, and then you have to script it out. And when you script it out, it's really important to just kind of place the order in which you expect these events to occur, what's going to happen, where you are, what's being said. And then one of the biggest things that needs to be done next is audio, especially if there's talking or dialogue or figuring out what music you want to use. All of that stuff is really important. And then after that, you do some design. So like where does this take place? What does it look like? Is it painterly? Like, what's the backgrounds look like? Do they look realistic? How do you want to design your film so it looks unique? And then character design. And a lot of that is the same process. And then after that, you do something called storyboards. And what the storyboards are drawings of where the characters belong in your composition, or where the characters belong like within the area that we're viewing as an audience. How do they move? What do they say? Are we close to them? Are we far away? How much of the background can we see? Where do they move? Do they walk across it? And then maybe we go to the next next position of the camera or next scene, and then we see them continuing to walk through another scene. So the storyboards help us figure out what the characters are doing and what the continuity of our story is, and does it work. And then that's where timing comes in, and you make something typically called an animatic in that point, where it's basically the storyboards or your drawings of what's happening in your animation, and like the map of what's going to happen in your animation are timed out in a like slideshow format. And then after that, you animate. Inking is not something that we really do anymore, because that would be done by hand, and you would like draw the you would kind of draw in the lines and then paint them. And we don't really do that anymore. So that would all just be done digitally by drawing over top your sketches. And I'll show you some examples of that from my own film. And then after that, you would composite, which means you combine it together. So sometimes the backgrounds are made separately from the characters, and then they're put together later. And so that would be the compositing step, which is when you take all the elements that you've made separately and put them together, if that's applicable for your film. And then after that, your film is made. So the 3D pipeline, and I brought that up as well here, it's very similar. And you can see a lot of the stuff is the same, where you have an idea and you figure out your story and storyboard. And there's the term animatic that I mentioned, where we kind of make a slideshow of what's meant to happen in our animation. And really the point of the storyboard and the animatic in 2D or in 3D, and 3D would be like Toy Story is a 3D film. We also see a lot of 3D in live action. So basically any Marvel movie or DC movie that you've watched with any superheroes in it, there's a ton of 3D in that. Barbie movie has a lot more 3D backgrounds and environments and stuff like that as well. So sometimes a lot of live action or things that are marketed as live action and not just fully animated film also have a lot of 3D in them. And then the animatic and storyboard process here is really important, though, because animation does take a long time. And so you want to make sure that your story is good and that your audience understands it and recognizes what is happening. And that's what's done here with these drawings. And I'll show you an example of a storyboard and animatic in a moment. And then after that, you do your design. And the big difference between 3D and 2D is you have to 3D sculpt a character and then give it a skeletal system and color, and then you animate it. And so that's the big difference, where with 2D, you just design your character, then you could just start drawing. And with 3D, you have to sort of build a little figure with a skeletal structure inside of it. And then after that, a lot of this stuff is exactly the same. You do your compositing, where you combine all the pieces that you want together if it needs to have it. If you need color correction, that might be something that needs to be done. Maybe it looks a little dull and you need to make it brighter or more colorful. And then you have your final animation. So that's the basic description of what happens in an animation. And the cool thing is when you're making your own work, you can skip some of these steps if you don't want to do them. When it comes to, so I'm making a 2D animated film, so I'm going to go back to the other one. So I did have, I did apply for some grants, so I did get some finance, which was awesome. I don't really need to worry about contracts because it's me. And I did do storyboards and audio. Otherwise, the rest of this was probably done in this order, but the thing I didn't have to do is contract. But if there's certain parts that you don't want to do, or it feels overwhelming, because this is a lot to learn, and I've been doing this for over 20 years at this point. But it can be a lot to learn and do, and a little bit at a time is the answer to that. You don't have to do it all at once. It's not, that's the best part about animation, is you could do the part that excites you the most. And that's the only part that you really have to focus on when we're looking at this whole thing. And if you watch a feature film, an animated film, watch the credits at the end and just see how many people there were. They're all doing their favorite part and the part that they're the best at. So someone might be doing backgrounds, someone else might be animating one character only. If you go back and watch some of the older animated films, you'll see that there's a person that would be the lead animator, the main animator for a character like Aladdin from the movie Aladdin. And they would be basically responsible for only animating him or making sure if someone else is animating him that they're doing it correctly. And so they would be the supervisor of the person animating Aladdin if they themselves are not doing it. So it can get really specialized. But when it's your own stuff, you can kind of take it in any direction you want to do. So that's a basic introduction. I wanted to share with you, I did mention storyboarding and the animatic process. And so I just wanted to share with you a little bit about how I did that. And here's my animatic. I'm going to share my screen again with sound. So I don't think I did. Okay, so you can hear a little bit of the sound that plays as well. And I'm just going to play the first like 30 seconds of it. And keep in mind, again, an animatic is a slideshow of storyboards. So there's no animation here. What I'm doing when I'm building this is not, I'm drawing very quickly. I am not thinking about how good the drawing is. I'm not thinking about what I'm making sure to do is to put the character where I think the character will be in the final version of this. And the next thing that I'm doing is making sure that what's happening in the scene is understandable to an audience. And I want to do all that now before I get into animating, because animation takes a long time. And I want to make sure it's successful before I get started. And so this is I'm just going to show you the first 30 seconds.
My first memory of you was when you asked me, Ashley, what day of the week do you want to see me? And I said, Sunday. I had 3,380 Sundays with you. They were for exploring hidden talents and for playing backgammon. You never let me win.
Okay, so it's a little bit more than 30 seconds, but so you could see how the film starts, and you can see that this looks nothing like the clip I just showed you. And that's okay. This is supposed to be low effort, and it's supposed to be just getting an idea of what the story is so that I can share it with my friends, which is exactly what I did. I shared this, it is almost 5 minutes long, but I shared the whole thing with my friends and I said, does this work? Does it look good? Do you understand what's happening? And then I got yes, or I got no, and then some suggestions on how I can fix that. And then once I finished that part, I started thinking about what I want it to look like. So what is my design? What do my characters look like? And one of the big things that I always recommend artists do of any kind, you don't have to be an animator to do this. This is for anything, but I think animation, and I say this to my students a lot, is really 3 different things that you can do to make yourself a good animator. One is to learn how to animate. That's only 1/3 of it though. The second one is to practice a lot. And then the third is to watch animation. And so finding influences for the type of thing you want to make or what you want it to look like. I mean, that's important for artists in any medium, but I just wanted to share with you some of my influences as I was thinking about what I want my film to look like and what I came up with. So one of my big ones from childhood was Calvin and Hobbes. And I really love when he makes snowy scenes in the comics. And this is Bill Watterson comics. These are beautiful. If you've never heard of him before, you should definitely check him out. Really beautiful comic art. And I love how minimal this is. And that's really what I wanted to go for, is I wanted the backgrounds to be very empty. And the characters to be the focus here, because it's a memory. And I feel like that's how we think about memories, is sort of it's spotty how you remember stuff. And so I kind of wanted that to be a part of the film. So Calvin and Hobbes was a big one. Wish was another. Now, Wish came out as I've been working on this. So I've been working on it since January of 2023. So Wish came out during that, but it has a lot of the watercolor look that I really liked. And I'll be honest, I sort of found this movie a bit lackluster. There's other Disney movies that I've liked a lot better. And I wanted to like it a lot more than I actually did, but it still is a really beautiful movie. And I loved the color palette and I loved how it looked. And so I saved a bunch of images like this on my computer. And just kind of, I basically keep like a little folder of things I like how they look. And I refer back to it when I'm making things. There's a movie called Loving Vincent, where it's about Vincent van Gogh, and it's fully animated with oil paints. So they like moved a little, like they painted a little bit and took a picture of it, painted a little bit more and took a picture of it, and then strung all those pictures together to make an animation, which was really cool. And this is the poster for it. It's a really great film. I think it's a little over an hour long, so it's fairly short, but it's really very beautiful. And I love how animation doesn't always mean that it's digital, and it doesn't always mean that it is made in the same way. And this is a great example of something that is made in a unique way, and it just looks really cool. Another one that was a really big influence is the movie The Prophet. And it's an independent animation that follows some of Khalil Gibran's life. He's a like kind of a philosopher, a poet from Lebanon. And so this is sort of following some of his life. And I just love how this looks. I think it's a really beautiful film. And you can really see that from the poster design here. It's just a absolutely gorgeous project. So this is another one that I highly recommend checking out if you haven't. And but like the color palettes of this and just the overall look was really influential for me. And then the last one is My Neighbors, the Yamadas, and that's another really influential piece for me. And you could see like the very limited backgrounds and stuff like that is kind of exactly what I'm going for in my film too. And with pre-production, I just wanted to share with you, I mentioned storyboards. You can find storyboard templates, and I just Googled this, and that's how I found all of these. There's tons of them you can find for free and then print to use to draw your storyboards. You could draw them digitally. If you prefer to draw them in like Procreate or Photoshop or GIMP or whatever software you like. But there's tons of templates that you can download and use. And then Canva also has a bunch of these available too, if anybody has a Canva account. I know that a lot of schools have that and stuff like that. So I know that some people may have access to this. And then the other one that's really good is Studio Binder, offers a lot of this stuff for free. These are completely free. And then like if you go to try to download it, it just allows you to download them directly. You don't even need to log in. They just let you download it. So these are some places where you can get some really nice storyboards that are in the correct size, because you want to work in the HD format, and these are the correct size for that. I can also provide all these links in the chat.
Ashley?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the questions that we have probably would be a good time to throw that in. Should a young person who's interested in becoming an animator start with a class or online program, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Great question. I would recommend, I mean, it's very much up to you. I know that taking a class is not something that everybody would be able to do, but especially if you're a student, you would be able to access software for cheap. And I'm going to show some software options in a little bit. There's also lots of stuff online on YouTube that's really useful, that I would recommend as well to help you get started. But if you could take a class, there's tons of colleges in the area that do like pre-college if you're a high school student, and they allow you to take classes that count toward college credits, where you could take an animation class with a professional and a professor that would be able to teach you how to do that. There's also online classes that are really useful, but really, I'm all about trying to find things that are like cheap and free, especially if you're not sure you like animation, but you want to try it out. Sometimes you might want to do that with the least amount of money as possible, because then if you don't like it, you haven't spent very much money. And so, in my recommendation then would be YouTube, because there's just tons of tutorials on how to animate something, like how to animate a bouncing ball, which is a really common one. Or you can find, and actually I could share that with you. There's a really great artist I recommend, and I'll come back to him, but his name is Alan Becker. And he is truly a magnificent artist, and he does a lot of really, really cool animations that I recommend. But he breaks down how to animate certain things, like how to animate a bouncing ball, how to animate a person walking. He also talks about the 12 principles of animation, which are different techniques that you could utilize to make an animation feel more believable. And those were developed by Disney animators in like the 1930s. And so like animating a person walking, or animating a laser blast, like just things like that, and that are really, really very helpful. And so I do recommend him as one of the more helpful tutorials. But you can also find tutorials for certain software, and I'll talk about that one in just a minute. I also see some really great questions in here. Is do I work on my animation solo, or do I have assistants? I do have a couple of assistants. I have people that I am not good at sound design. I have tried. I'm just not. And that's okay. I don't have to be good at all parts of it, but then that means I need someone to help me. And I have some friends that, and this is something that I recommend that you do as well, is if you have a friend that's good at music and sound, maybe they do some of the music for your animation and you do the animation portion. So I have a friend that's really good at sound design, and that's what he does. He does sound design for me, and I help him with his animated films when he's making something, and he helps me when I'm making something. And I have a few other people that I have also worked with that every once in a while, we kind of trade help on each other's projects. And cartoons that inspired me in my childhood, I've got many. Looney Tunes are a big one. Disney, especially The Little Mermaid and Aladdin. And this one's a little bit more obscure, but I feel like it's becoming more popular. I see it a lot more lately, and that's The Last Unicorn. And I really love that film. It came out in 1982. It's truly beautiful. That's another big one of mine. And I also really loved the Dark Crystal movie, which came out, and that was a Jim Henson production that came out in I also want to say the 80s, but that's another really, really big one of mine. Let's see. So I wanted to share just some examples of production. So like how the film starts, and then and how I kind of make progress on it, because it is something I make a lot of mistakes. And I mentioned that before about the cards, when I animated the wrong card, had to do it again. But sometimes the mistakes are not mistakes at the time. So sometimes I think I like how something looks, and I look at it a little bit longer, and I'm like, that I don't like it, and I want to change it. So one of the things that when you're making your own work in general, but especially animation, is you really want to be kind to yourself about what something looks like and how you want to change it, and be comfortable with changing it. Sometimes I feel like we've spent so much time on something and we're like, well, it has to be like that. I just spent like 3 hours on it and I don't want to redo it. But going back and maybe testing some other things out can sometimes make it even better. And I just wanted to share an example of that for you, where that's exactly what I did. So here's the animatic again. I'm going to turn the volume off. So here's the animatic again. And then we see the finished product is going to be the next clip. So it's just going to basically loop again, but with the animation. And so originally I thought I liked this. I liked the colors. There's some mistakes with it, mistakes in the colors you might notice. I'll point one out. The skirt here, there's little, like sometimes it's the skin color and sometimes it's the dress. But I decided I didn't like this. I didn't feel like it had I like watercolor look. And so I decided to change it. Originally this was what was going to look like. So now I picked this out and I was like, okay, I put watercolor paper behind it. And I thought this watercolor paper, because I found it online. It's just images, but like it had all these little like floaty things in there. And I just didn't think that looked very good. It was really distracting. So then I went back in again and I found other images online that people have scanned of paper that I could use. I did not scan this stuff myself. I couldn't find anything I liked enough. I tried. And then I felt like the way that I put this together, this looks like a burn, and I didn't feel like it looked like someone drawing pen over it to look more watercolory. So then I did one more pass, and then that's the one I'm happy with, which is this one. So I felt like this looks a little bit more, and it's all fully digital, but this looks a little bit more the way that I wanted it to. And so this is the one I'm satisfied with, and this is my finished clip. And it took me a very long time to come up with this. So I started with like this one, and then I decided I wasn't happy with it, and I moved on to this one, and I kind of sat on it for a little bit while animating some other scenes and then came back to it. So I was still making progress. But I didn't like it. So, and then I came back to it and fixed it. So as we work on things, I really want to reiterate that it's okay to change. And a really great example of that, I know a huge successful movie that just came out is Sonic 3, which I still haven't watched. I need to. But if you remember, or if you don't, you could look it up. It's really interesting. But they originally designed Sonic very differently, and they gave him like teeth, and he just didn't look like himself. And there was a huge public outcry, like, oh, this looks terrible. And then they changed him. So sometimes like changing something is good. And I feel like now the 3 Sonic movies are very successful, especially the most recent one. And one of the biggest reasons for that is because when those movies were in production, the production companies and the studio listened to their audience, because the audience said, all these people online said, wow, Sonic looks terrible. We don't like it. And then they went back in and changed it. So sometimes having to change things, is a good thing. And one of the software packages the software that I use personally is called Toon Boom, and it is the industry standard in North America, in the United States. And this is the software. This is what it looks like. And we don't really have enough time to get into like a software demo, but what I can do is just share with you a little bit about how this works. And I'm able to hit like my play button and watch the animation move. And then I can, draw over top of it and add drawings to it. So I can use this software to build my animation up and create my animation. And I have outlines on their own layer. So I have all of these outlines here, not the colors, in a separate layer. So I have all the outlines on their own layer. So I'm hiding them now so you can see where they are. And this is not typically how this software is supposed to be used. You're supposed to be able to keep, you don't necessarily need to separate it out in the way that I do. I just did that because I wanted a watercolor look. And so I needed to really sit and play with the software to make it do what I wanted it to. And that took some time. And then I have like highlights on, I drew a highlight on there, and then I have shadow that I drew on there, and then the color. And I did lots of sketches to get to this point. It didn't just look like this immediately. I did a drawing and then another drawing and then another drawing until I liked what it looked like. And it was a long process. This is the first shot that I created as well. So I've actually, this took a long time, but future scenes and future clips for the film took a lot less time because I figured things out as I went. And then once you figure things out, you get faster at it. And that's no different no matter how skilled you are at something. But I wanted to share with you a little bit more, one more thing, and then I'll show you the software. So this one, let's see. Oops, I'm missing one. Give me a second here. I thought I added this. I must not have. All right. So one last thing I just want to share with about the production process, and I'll show this is a smoke tree. It's like a purple plant. And I have one in my front yard, so I filmed it first. And that's one of the most important things about animation is it is about looking at our world and then making it more magical through how we animate it. So I looked at my smoke tree, I filmed it with my phone, which made things even easier. And so I filmed this, and then I used it as reference for my animatic, which is here. So this is the credits scene. And I just wanted some leaves to be blowing back and forth. I didn't want characters or anything here because I wanted it to be more about the names. And then this is what it originally looked like, and I didn't like it. And just like that other scene I showed you, this is paper I made and scanned. And I thought it looked more like stucco than it did like paper. I really fought with this. I wanted to make my own paper and not find it online. I even learned how to make paper, and this is the one that was too speckly. And so I just keep making changes until I'm happy with the result. And then this is the one that I ended up with the tax documents in the background and then the moving plant. So, it took some time and a little bit of fighting with myself sometimes, and sometimes with the software, sometimes with a skill set I'm learning to get to that point. And then I'll share with you. So this is the software that I use. If you're a student, you can get this software for way cheaper. I use Harmony. That's and then they do have a storyboarding software, and I did use that as well. But it's about $10 a month for a student, and they do give you a 21-day free trial. So you would be able to decide if you even wanted to pay the $10 a month for the software. But one of the things that I really like about Toon Boom is not only is it the software that you would use in college, in most of the colleges in the tri-state area will teach this software, but they also, most companies I feel want you to pay for classes to learn them, not Toon Boom. They want you, so this is just YouTube, and this is their official YouTube page. They want you to know how to use their software, and they're willing to give you that information for free. And this is one of the things that I love about them, and probably also why they're the industry standard. And so you can see all of this stuff. They just break it down for you really easily. So if this is something that you're interested in, it's worth testing out. There are some other options. Digicel has a flipbook software, and I did do a demo on animating a bouncing ball, I want to say last year, with Arts of Rockland County. And Flipbook is what I used, and you could try it. It's also pretty cheap to purchase. This is it's a one-time fee. As you can see here, and it's, a lot less money than paying $10 a month for a subscription software, which is what Toon Boom is. And then if you like Procreate Dreams is magnificent, and it's for an iPad. So it's really perfect. And it's easy to use, and it's only $20, and you only have to buy it once. It's just magnificent. So if you have an iPad, you have an iPad pen, this is all you would need to begin your animation journey. And then some schools do offer an Adobe subscription as a part of, like, it's something that you might be able to access as a part of being a student. And if it is, then they do have an animation software called Animate. I will fully, admit that out of all of these options, this one's my least favorite, but it is still a really, really great animation software, and it will give you, the tools that you need to be, to make your own animation too. And a couple other resources that I have for you, which would be the Animator's Survival Kit. This is a magnificent book. It is truly one of my favorites. I got this book when it first came out, which was in like 2003, I think, maybe 2004. And I still use it. And I've been animating now for 20 years, and I still find something useful in it. And it's universal. It's not about a software. It's about human and animal movement. And he breaks it down really, really well, because one of the things that you want to do as an animator is you want to start small, like animate a bouncing ball, animate a hand going from a thumbs up to a thumbs down, animate someone smiling and then frowning. And you want to do that before you try to animate someone walking, because that's a lot of stuff. We have a lot of stuff to make us walk, and it's a lot more complicated than you'd think, just because we do it every day. If you really think about it, it takes babies like a year to a year and a half to learn how to walk, because it is a complicated movement. And so I would start with some simple stuff, like maybe, again, animating a bowling ball or a bouncing ball, animating a smile or frown, animating a blink, like someone winking or blinking, it's more manageable, and it'll help you learn the software, and then you can animate someone walking. But this book breaks it all down in a really nice way, and it's a great complement to the tutorials that I shared from Alan Becker here. He also breaks down a lot of these things, and how to do a lot of these things too. And then if you're interested in just learning more about animation, I recommend, if you go to disneyanimation.com, they always have just behind the scenes examples of their process, and they are really good about showing that off. They have tons of stuff like this, where they just kind of explain what it's like to work there, and like how they come up with their films, some of the behind the scenes stuff. It's really, really cool. And just 3 more websites for you would be AWN.com, which is the Animation World Network. It's just animation news, anything from new software stuff to like who's nominated for an Oscar, interviews with directors of animated films, just anything in that ballpark. Animationmagazine.net is another really good one, and you can subscribe and they'll send you an email every day, so you don't have to even remember to go here. Cartoonbrew.com is another really good one, and this one is actually a New York based publication, so they're based in New York City. And then my last piece of advice is just a little bit about drawing tablets. Now, if you have an iPad and you download Procreate Dreams, you have the pen probably as well. But if you're using a computer and the computer itself is not like, say, a Surface, which would allow you to be able to draw on the screen, there's lots of options of varying prices. As you could see here, I have everything. I just Googled drawing tablets, and there's anything from $200 to $1,000 to $20 or, well, $30. So my recommendation would be, one of the very first things that I got was something like this. It was about $40. And I got that as a college student. So I recommend starting with something in like this price range and just make sure, and test it out. And then after that, and just see what you like first. Because you might end up having preferences of the type of tablet. And one of the best ways to figure out if you do is to start with one that's cheaper and then test out other ones as you go, maybe at school, or maybe once the one that you have is no longer sufficient, trying like the next level up and so on. So those are some of my recommendations there. Any questions for me?
I don't. There was another question, but really you answered that. That was your about the animations and cartoons that inspired you during your childhood. I think you went over them.
I did. Yeah, I did cover some of them. There's so many. I could talk about that for another hour. But and everybody has their own. Another really big one for me was Sailor Moon, actually. That was a really huge one.
So, Michael, we're set with the questions.
Yes, that was it.
Okay. So, Ashley, if you would mind stopping sharing your screen, that would
Of
be
course.
great. No problem. Perfect. I want to thank you, Ashley. That was the most in-depth presentation I have seen for animation. I learned so much, and I'm truly grateful for your time and absolutely your expertise.
Oh,
Rockland
thank
Arts
you.
Festival owes you a lot for spending your Saturday with us. I want to thank everybody who's come, and let you know that the Rockland Arts Festival was made possible by our sponsors and the Arts Alive grant we got from Arts Westchester. I want to invite everyone to check out our marvelous week of online and live workshops starting tomorrow at 7. You can find out what we're doing at www.rocklandartsfestival.org. And you'll also be able to see the beautiful work from our 84 visual artists. Again, thank you for your time, Ashley. And
Thank you for
thank you, everyone. Have a great day.